So I'm a 24-year-old from the UK, and over the last couple of years I have lived obviously in the UK, I've lived in Australia, and I'm currently living here in New Zealand at the moment, and I've spent decent time now in all three countries. So in today's video I'm going to be comparing a few different things and ranking them from the best to the worst for all three countries for you guys who might want a bit of help with which country you should move to. Also you guys who live in Australia or New Zealand or the UK, to see what my opinion is. So yeah, this video might help you out, or you might just be interested to see what it's like from a British person's perspective. So the first thing that we're going to compare is the cost of living. Overall, all three countries are fairly expensive. For me, the worst cost of living out of the three is New Zealand. For me, it has fairly low wages and also probably the most expensive prices out of all three countries, in particular food. So New Zealand definitely is the worst out of the three. In second, I would probably say the UK, not quite as expensive as New Zealand, however, and I've actually found that the wages are very similar for New Zealand and the UK. The UK is a little bit cheaper though, so it's not quite as expensive for a cost of living as New Zealand. And for me, the best cost of living out of the three, without question, is Australia. A few people on TikTok, when I've done videos talking about this, do disagree with me, but in my opinion, Australia had by far the best cost of living. I found it the easiest to save there out of all three countries, mostly due to the high wages, and also it's about as expensive as New Zealand, but the wages make up for it though. I was probably saving an extra $200 a week in Australia compared to New Zealand. So Australia, definitely the best cost of living. So how do the people compare for all three countries? Generally, I have found the people in all three countries very, very nice, especially Australia and New Zealand. Moving abroad, it's nice to have people who are nice and stuff. Obviously, English speaking is a massive benefit. It's not like moving somewhere in Europe or something where they don't speak English. I found that Aussies and Kiwis are actually very similar to people in the UK. However, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put Kiwis last. This is no disrespect to people in New Zealand. I think they're very nice. However, I think compared to people in Australia, they may be a little bit more reserved, a little bit less social. I found people in Australia a little bit more welcoming, but that's just one thing I've noticed. I think people in New Zealand are just a little bit more reserved. But second, I'm gonna go with Australia. Aussies are great, Aussies are funny, and I had a great experience in Australia with people there. I loved working with Aussies. Very rarely met Aussies that I didn't like, to be honest. And I'm not gonna lie, as negative as people are in the UK, and as much as we moan and as much as we complain, there's something about the British culture and the British humour that I do miss. And as much as I like people in Australia or New Zealand, I have to put British people number one, because I don't know what it is, it's the humour. And I feel like as much as I like people on this side of the world, I feel like when we meet other Brits, there's just an instant connection. I think a lot of British travellers will agree with me on that one. Although it is nice to escape the negativity of the UK, that's for sure. So what are the wages like for each country? Don't need to do too much explaining with this one. For me, just about New Zealand is the worst again, unfortunately. Then the UK, and then Australia. Like I said, the cost of living, Australia has the best wages out of the three, that's for sure. I was getting paid way more in Australia than both the UK and New Zealand, where the wages were fairly similar. Next up is the lifestyle. So what's the lifestyle like for each country? The UK is definitely the worst for me out of these three. I think the lifestyle in the UK is it's depressing. The weather is not great for the majority of the year. When it gets dark at 4 PM in the winter and you don't see the sun for 2 weeks, it is very hard to motivate yourself to go outside and live a nice outdoor lifestyle, especially compared to this side of the world where, you know, the outdoors is such a big part of life. In the UK, it takes a lot of motivation, especially in the winter, to go and actually do anything outside. I feel like the culture and the lifestyle in the UK is literally just going to the pub, going to work and repeating. The second best lifestyle, in my opinion, is New Zealand. New Zealand is great for lifestyle, definitely decent weather, not as good as Australia, but you've got the nature in New Zealand, which is amazing. Even living here in Auckland, there is some really good nature around the city, especially now it's summer. You can go and experience that. The beaches are actually very nice. And if you go out to some of the islands, It is so nice. There is such a nice, it is a good lifestyle here. The lifestyle in the winter in New Zealand wasn't great, but now it's summer. The lifestyle here is very good. And number one for lifestyle, I don't think this is any shock at all, but it's Australia. Australia has the best lifestyle out of anywhere I've been, to be honest. So much sun, amazing weather, the best beaches. Everyone's so fit and healthy, getting out running at 6 AM. And yeah, I've never lived in a country where the lifestyle is so good as Australia. So the quality of life in all three countries have a fairly decent quality of life. Generally, the quality of life is very high. I would have to put the UK last for quality of life now, I would say. I think one, because of the cost of living, but two, because the country is just a mess. The safety has massively gone down. That the UK is nowhere near as safe as it used to be. The rate of immigration and stuff has made the UK just, it's not safe anymore. We've got a knife crime problem. We've got all kinds of shit going on. The country is a bit of a mess, and it definitely, the quality of life in the UK is going downhill very, very fast, especially compared to Australia and New Zealand, where for me the quality of life is so much higher than what it is in the UK. Again, I'm gonna have to put New Zealand second and Australia first for quality of life. There's not a massive amount of difference actually between the quality of life in both countries. Very, very high standard of living for sure. Not a massive difference between the two. I would put Australia just ahead though, because of the amazing weather, which is going to improve anyone's quality of life, that's for sure. And the last thing we're going to compare is the weather, and surprise, surprise, it's the exact same ranking as the last one. The UK, I don't think it's any shock that the UK is worst out of the three for the weather. Just depressing. Cold and rainy for 9 months of the year, and then when it does get to summer, you're not even guaranteed a nice summer. New Zealand, I'm not going to lie, the weather in Auckland hasn't been great. The best thing about it though is now it's summer, it has actually been very consistent. It's literally mid-20s every day. It's not like in the UK summer where one day could be 32, the next day could be 17. Do you know what I mean? It's like all over the place. In New Zealand, at least the summer's been consistent. A lot of rain here, which is a bit of a shame, but I would say the weather is better than the UK, that's for sure. And then Australia, I don't even need to talk about the weather in Australia. It's obviously amazing. It depends obviously where in Australia you're looking at. The weather varies depending on where in Australia you are. If you're up north in Queensland and Darwin and stuff, then like it's very different to what it's like in Melbourne. However, the weather in Australia is better than the UK and New Zealand. Pretty much anywhere you go in Australia, that's just a fact. So that's my opinion after living in all three countries. Some of you guys might have a different opinion. Some things are just a fact, such as the wage, such as the cost of living. However, some things like the quality of life, the lifestyle, the weather, that does depend on the person. That was me speaking from personal experience about them things. But you guys might not like a hot climate, do you know what I mean? So maybe New Zealand, for example, might be a better option, but that was my personal opinion for all three countries. And if I had to do a ranking, I mean, pretty much what most of the lists look like. UK at 3, New Zealand at 2, and Australia at number 1. For me, the only thing about the UK which is amazing is the people, obviously. All my family and friends are back there, so that's the biggest draw I have to the UK. If you take them out of the UK, I don't think I would ever go back. You know, that's me being honest, but obviously having all of them there does probably mean that we'll probably go back one day. And as I've spoken about in other videos comparing Australia and New Zealand, for me Australia is my favourite. But like I said, that's a personal opinion. This video might have given you a few ideas for anyone who wants to move to any of these countries, and you can kind of get an idea of what I like. And if you're similar to me, then definitely, yeah, this ranking probably is accurate. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. People who live in any of these 3 countries, let me know your thoughts on my rankings. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave some comments down below, like the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.